All right, everyone, good evening and welcome back to Gurong Pinoy. We are live tonight with our general science. We start with question number one. Okay, number one. A scientist is running a test of her hypothesis. Which step of the scientific method is she executing? Is it letter A, experiment, letter B, analysis, letter C, observation, or letter D, conclusion? Okay, which one do you think is the correct choice for number one? Okay, Facebook user says letter A. Letter A. Okay, some more comments. All right, letter A, karamihang sagot. And of course, letter A here is the correct choice, okay? So the scientist is running a test of her hypothesis, and we know that the main purpose of experimentation is to check whether your hypothesis is correct or wrong, okay? Now remember, it is okay to have a wrong hypothesis. Okay lang po kahit hypothesis nyo ay wrong. That means there might be something missing, no? Po pwedeng kulang ang inyong background research. So po pwedeng balikan nyo yung inyong background research, add more research or do more research so that you can come up with a better hypothesis, or you can simply just revise your hypothesis, or you can even just write your alternate hypothesis. Okay, so that's the main purpose of your experimentation. And of course, we know that this is part of your scientific method. So these right here are the different steps of our scientific method. We all know that your scientific method, before you come up with your scientific question, you still have to perform observation. Okay, so mag-observe ka po muna. When you say observation, then you are going to take a look at your surroundings. No, gagamitin mo yung inyong five senses, your sense of sight, smell, hearing, taste, or your sense of touch. Okay, so that's your observation, the use of your five senses. And because of this, you would be able to come up with your scientific question, your scientific problem. Now remember, your scientific question should not be answerable by a yes or a no. It should be testable, or that means for you to be able to answer it, then you need to have experimentation or to perform experiments. Now, your hypothesis would come after your scientific question. Sometimes there would be background knowledge prior to making your hypothesis. Okay, so pag gumagawa tayo ng thesis, for example, your action research, your dissertation, meron po munang background research prior to having your hypothesis. Okay, so background research ka muna, and then of course you would be able to come up with your hypothesis. That's your educated guess. That is a possible answer to your scientific question. And your hypothesis is going to be tested through experimentation. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the main purpose of experiment is to test whether your hypothesis is correct or wrong. Okay, so you do experiments, you measure your data. Observation here, in this case, observation that we have here after experimentation is data gathering. Okay, so pag gather ka na ng data mo, mag-observe ka ng data mo, mag-measure ka ng mga variables mo, okay, that will be part of your observation here. That's data gathering. Then, of course, after that, you analyze your data. You may put them in certain ways that you can organize them. So you can put them in tables. You may use different types of graphs. And of course, from that, you can come up with your conclusion. Now, if your hypothesis is right, your conclusion would just say or would just restate your hypothesis. If your hypothesis is wrong, your conclusion is going to negate your hypothesis. Okay, so these are the different steps of your scientific method. Now, again, the scientific method is not stiff. Okay, so hindi siya linear, hindi siya dapat ganito lang, no? Minsan, pabalik-balik ka sa isang step. Minsan, nandito ka na sa analysis, meron kang nakalimutan, babalikan mo pa certain types or certain parts of your scientific method. Okay, so this right here is your scientific method. And again, we were looking for letter A, experiment. Okay, because experimentation's purpose is to check whether your hypothesis is correct or wrong. Okay, so letter A for number one. We move on with number two. What is the difference between a bar graph and a pie chart? Is it letter A? They are the same thing, just referred to by two different names. Letter B. Bar graph shows percentages within a square, and a pie chart shows percentages within a circle. Letter C, a bar graph typically represents exact numbers, while a pie chart represents percentages. Or letter D, a bar graph shows exact numbers within a bar, and a pie chart shows exact numbers within a circle. Which one is your choice for number 2? Number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Ano po ang inyong choice for question number 2? All right, question number 2. I see a lot of letter C's. May iilang B. Okay, so C, B ang choice nyo for number 2. May iilang D. Karamihan ang choice nyo ay letter C. Okay, going back to question number 2, this pertains to the different types of graph that we have. Half lang. Okay, so number 2 here, going back to your number 2, this is asking you the difference between your two types of graph, the bar graph and the pie chart. And the correct choice here is letter C. Tama po yung letter C. A bar graph, typically, okay, we have the term typically, represents exact numbers yung inyong bar graph, while a pie chart represents percentages. Now, again, we do graphs so that people who are trying to read our researches, trying to check the results of our researches would have a simple way of looking at our data. They will have an easy way of checking our data. That's why we would be using graphs instead of tables. Kasi pag graphs kasi, you are representing your data using your pictures in picture form. And so very easy for them to see the differences between your results. Okay, so between the different data that you have in your results. And so letter C here is a correct choice. A bar graph would typically represent exact numbers, while a pie chart represent percentages. Let's take a look at your example. So this right here is an example of your bar graph. Usually, we'd use bar graphs if we have different choices. No? Pag meron tayong different choices, pag meron tayong different months, for example, we can also use your bar graph. Or sometimes, you are comparing different data. So in this case here, meron kang tropical storm and hurricane. Okay, so tropical storm and hurricane, and also both. Okay, so this person has used a bar graph for his study or for her study. So again, we use this when we have different choices, when we have different genre of music, for example, when we are trying to survey the favorite pets of people, favorite colors, favorite music, no, favorite movies, pwede yun. And typically, in your line graph or in your bar graph, yung independent variable would always be on your x-axis. Okay, so itong horizontal axis mo would always have your independent variable. So of course, time would be an independent variable. No? So depende sa time. And of course, your dependent variable, in this case, monthly average of the storm and hurricanes, would be on your y-axis. Okay, your dependent variable would be on your y-axis. So again, this is an example of a bar graph. It shows comparisons, it shows genre, it shows different types, different categories. No? So if you have choices, you will be using your bar graph. So again, typically, it represents numbers. Okay, so numbers talaga yung nire-represent ng inyong bar graph. Now, this right here is your pie chart. Ito naman yung pie chart, nakalimutan lang niya yung title. This should have been the different browsers, no? The different browsers that people are using. So as you can see, Chrome is used by 46.6% of the population. 24.6% of the population uses Internet Explorer. 20.4% uses Firefox, and so on. Okay, so in your pie chart, or also called your circle graph, it uses percentages. Okay, so letter C po ang ating choice. Now, there is another type of graph that is also very popular, and that's your line graph. So line graph, ganun din, katulad din siya ng bar graph. The independent variable would be on the x-axis. The dependent variable will be on your y-axis. You plot your points, your different data points that you have by getting the intercept of your x and your y-axis, and then of course you connect them using lines. Your line graph naman would be used to show trends. Okay, so if there is a question in your lab, you are trying to have an experiment or trying to gather data based on the differences in temperature within a day. Okay, for example, different temperatures within the day, no? So kada oras ng isang araw, and so you'd want to show the trend or the changes over a period of time. And if the let would be asking you what type of graph are you going to use, then you would be using a line graph. Okay, so you'd be using a line graph. So again, line graph would be for change or trend over a period of time. Your circle graph is used to show the different parts of a whole. Your bar graph is used for the different categories, no, different options. If you have different brands, different genre, different choices, then you'd be using your bar graph. Okay, but for number 2, letter C is the correct choice. So we move on with number 3. You measure the length of a fish 6 times. Each time, you find it to be 125 centimeters long. In reality, the fish is actually 135 centimeters long. Which of the following statements is true? Is it letter A, you are both accurate and precise in your measurements? Letter B, you are accurate but not precise in your measurement. Letter C, you are neither accurate nor precise in your measurements. Letter D, you are precise but not accurate in your measurements. Which one do you think is the correct choice for number 3? Number 3 na po tayo. Time check, 7:15. Please put your answers in our chat box. Almusal po tayo. Sana nakapaghapunan na po kayo. Okay, ano ang inyong choice for number 3? I see B, D, C. Alin kaya dyan yung tama? Wala mo lang nag-letter A. Walang nag-letter A. B, D, C ang nakikita ko sa inyong chat box. Ano kaya yung tamang choice for number 3? Okay, karamihang sagot ninyo ay letter D, Ma'am Kay Kabuyok. Off topic, nagmamask pa po kayo sa class nyo. Yes, nagmamask po kami. Pero, hindi po required yung students. Sir Raven, nakakagutom yung spaghetti. May question dito. Ma'am Mek, ask ko lang po sana if pwede na po kami mag-start ng 14 days quarantine. Mukhang masyado pang early, Sir Alvi. You still have 21 days prior to the let, no? 21 days na lamang pala. Hindi you still have, no? Wala na. Hindi na mahaba yung oras, 21 days na lamang po, no? Especially sa mga magti-take ng let this September. Okay, so siguro 2 weeks prior to your let, saka po kayo mag-quarantine. You still have 21 days. Okay, 21 days pa. Panyapon, yes. So again, going back to the question, nagmamask po kaming teachers, but we are not required. Hindi naman kami nire-require because by law, ayaw nilang i-require, no, tawag dito, dito kasi marami silang rights. So, fina-fight talaga nila yung rights nila. May rights sila not to wear the mask kasi hindi mandated yung mask. So, yung meron kami mga students, karamihan puti, yung hindi nagmamask. Yung mga puset, kadalasan ay nagmamask. Pero this week, we are going to be back virtual dahil maraming cases, no? Dahil nga maraming hindi nagmamask. Sir Ruel Abiliar, good evening po, Coach Mac. Pwede po ba favor na wag muna i-delete ang mga Prof Ed Final Coaching videos? Kasi nire-replay ko pa po. Salamat po. Hindi naman po siya na-delete. No? Hindi po siya i-delete. Nandyan lang po siya sa inyong group. Ayon, sabi ni Ma'am Michelle Diaz, it should be 3 to 5 days before the exam. Kaya sa request ko, start ako sa 8, mag-end sa 22. Facebook user, confirm ko lang po kung wala po ba talaga new materials. Meron po tayong quizzes for your bio and we are going to be discussing it po. Okay, magsiset po tayo ng schedule probably by next weekend. Kasi wala po akong live next weekend and so meron pong live, meron tayong live pero iba yung lecture. So, po pwede tayong mag-bio. Okay, going back to the question that we have here, a lot of you have answered letter D, and here, letter D is the correct choice. Okay, so letter D po ang ating correct choice dito. You measure the length of a fish 6 times. So, 6 na beses mong mineasure yung haba ng isda, no? Each time you find it to be 125 centimeters long. In reality, the fish is actually 135 centimeters long. And so the answer here is you are precise but not accurate in your measurements. Teka lang po. Saglit lang, babasahin ko lang tong comment ni Ma'am Michelle. Huwag nyo isagad sa 24, baka kasi hindi agad makuha ang certificate. 24 Friday ata. Walang office pag Saturday. So yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Michelle, siya ay magsa-start ng quarantine by the 8th. Okay, today is the 5th. Okay, so sa 8 po siya magsa-start. Required data kayo ng swab test, no? Required ba ng swab test? Meron nang nakapost niyan sa ating page. So, balikan nyo po. Okay, so again here, letter D po ang ating tamang choice, no? You are precise but not accurate. Bakit precise pero hindi accurate? Ano bang pagkakaiba ng accuracy and precision? Okay, when you say accuracy, this is how close a measurement is to the true value. So, in that case here, yung kaninang ating example, 125 centimeters yung measurement niya, napakalayo, so 135 na exact length ng kanyang isda, no? And so, we cannot say that it is precise. Hindi siya precise. Hindi siya accurate, Hindi siya accurate because malayo siya sa actual value. Okay, so it is how close a measurement is to the true value. On the other hand, it is precise. Its measurement or his measurements were precise because precision is also called reproducibility or repeatability, and it is the agreement of repeated measurements. Do you remember in our experiment, in our example a while ago, 6 na beses niyang mineasure, and each time that he measures it, he gets 125 centimeters. Okay, so 125 centimeters ang kanyang measurement each time that he gets a measurement, and 6 times niyang ginawa yon. And so we can say that he is precise or his measurements were precise. So ang precision po, magkakalapit yung values ng kada measurement mo, no? So it is the agreement of repeated measurements. Pero yung accuracy is how close it is to the actual value. Okay, how close to the actual value. So po pwede kang maging precise without being accurate. Po pwedeng maging precise ang inyong measurement. Po pwedeng pare-parehas lagi yung inyong measurement pero hindi ka accurate. Okay, so it is possible that your measurement is precise but inaccurate. Okay, so parang sa pag-ibig lang din, no? Parang sa choice mo sa inyong boyfriend, girlfriend. Precise ka, parehas lagi yung characteristics ng inyong mga nagiging boyfriend, girlfriend, pero never kang nagiging accurate, no? Hindi mo nakikita yung tamang tao, pare-parehas lang yung characteristics na pinipik mo. Ayun. May mga lugar lang po na required yung swab test. Okay. So sa NCR, mamili lang po sa dalawa, swab test or 14 days quarantine. Tapos may certificate lang, no? So balikan niyo po lahat ng mga nakapost per region kasi iba-iba daw po yung kanilang requirement. Okay? So balikan niyo po. Ma'am Bebet Calbog, kailangan po ba ng swab test kahit fully vaccinated na po? Again, there are some regions, katulad ng sabi dito ni Sir Mark Kingko, there are some regions na required po. So, balikan nyo po. May mga Facebook pages naman yung kada region. So, balikan nyo po lahat ng mga requirements nila. Okay, so balikan nyo po. I cannot answer the questions that you have for the PRC. So, balikan nyo po lahat ng inyong regions, no, sa page po nila. Okay, or magtanong po kayo sa kanila, mag-send po kayo ng message. Ayun, Sir Raymond, Mamek, ano po bang review center name na ilagay namin at address ng review? Meron ba? Meron palang ganyan? Wag na daw, wag nang ilagay? Or kung gusto nyo, optional lang naman daw yan, Sir Raymond. Kung gusto nyo ilagay nyo Gurong Pinoy, tapos ilagay nyo Iloilo, pwede din naman po yun. Okay, we proceed with question number, prior to that, so this right here, kung meron kayo nakikitang ganito, would you say that this is accurate or is this precise? Okay, is this accurate or precise? Ma'am Yvonne Diamsin, yung calculators po ay para lamang sa mga math major, sa kanilang majorship. Sa Gen Ed po ay walang math. Ay, walang math. Walang calculator. Okay, accurate. I see a lot of accurate. Accurate, precise. Okay, again, yung tanong natin is, if you see this picture, would you say that this is accurate or is this precise? Okay, so some of you are saying accurate, others are saying precise. Ayun, isa lamang yung nakita kong tama. Si Sir Raymond, both precise and accurate. Sir Martin ko, hindi po walang math, walang calculator. Okay, both precise and accurate. Tama yan, Sir Raymond. Okay, so both precise and accurate siya. Accurate siya kasi na-hit niya yung target. And precise din siya kasi 3 beses siyang nag-try, no? 3 beses siyang sumubok at pare-parehas yung spot na nahihit ng kanyang dart, no? So, it is both precise and accurate. Both precise and accurate po ito. Now, remember, your measurements can be precise, pwedeng pare-parehas yung inyong measurement, pero hindi accurate. Okay? So, dapat klaro na sa atin kung anong accuracy. Accuracy is kung gaano siya kalapit sa actual value, sa true value. And precise is kung gaano kalapit yung mga measurements mo. No? Kung 5 beses ka measure, magkakalapit ba tong 5 measurements mo? Ma'am, ano po bang susuotin during exam? White t-shirt with collar po ba? Or white shirt lang po? I think to be safe po, mag-white t-shirt with collar po kayo. Okay, we move on. Number 4. May guidelines daw po sa kada PRC, no? So, kada region office ninyo. So, balikan niyo po lahat ng guidelines. Number 4, what contributions did Copernicus make in the history of science? Is it letter A? He was the first astronomer and studied the movement of the stars. Letter B, he discovered that the Earth orbited around the sun. Letter C, he concluded how gravity works by watching an apple fall from a tree. Or letter D, he was the first philosopher to break out of the idea that everything occurs due to the God's whims. Okay, ano kaya yung choice for number 4? Ayun, sabi ni Ma'am Michelle Diaz, nasa PRC Examination Advisory po yan. So, balikan nyo po lahat doon, basahin nyo po lahat doon. Kasi iba-iba nga yung guidelines niyo, siguro depende din sa cases ng COVID sa lugar niyo, no, kung i-require nila yung swab test or hindi. Okay, number 4. Karamihang sagot ay letter B. For number 4, letter B. And of course, letter B here is the correct choice. Okay, so Copernicus was the one who said, he discovered that the Earth orbited around the Sun. Okay, so this is the main contribution of Copernicus na yung tinatawag nating heliocentric theory. No, heliocentric. When you say helio, it means the sun, and when you say centric, of course, the sun is at the center of the universe. Okay, so according to Copernicus, hindi po Earth yung nasa center ng universe, but it is the sun. Okay, so we call this the heliocentric theory of the solar system, kasi the sun is at the center of the solar system, and the planets would go around the sun. Okay, the planets, including the Earth, would orbit around the sun, because a long time ago, prior to this, people believe in the geocentric theory. No? Geocentric theory. Sino nga yung proponent in geocentric theory? Please put that in your comment box. Oy, ayun. Nauna na pala si Sir Raven. Ayan, tama yan. Copernicus, Earth orbited the sun. No? So, si Copernicus ay heliocentric theory. Si Ptolemy would be geocentric theory. Okay, so tama po yan. Copernicus, heliocentric theory, and Ptolemy ay for your geocentric theory. Okay, so that's those are the differences. So for a long time, people believed in Ptolemy's theory. So people believe that the Earth is at the center, and the sun, along with the rest of the planets, are revolving around the Earth. But now we know that tama si Copernicus, no? It is the sun which is at the center of the universe, not the Earth. Okay, so tandaan po, ang araw po ang nasa sentro ng ating solar system, hindi po ang Earth, at dapat ay hindi din siya ang nasa sentro ng iyong solar system. Dapat yung universe mo hindi din umiikot sa kanya, no? It is the sun which is at the center of the solar system. So letter B, ang ating answer for number 4. We move on. Number 5. Why was Agloniki considered a sorceress? Is it letter A, she could predict when an eclipse would occur? Letter B, she would mysteriously heal people? Letter C, she had a desire to study science? Or letter D, she would try to put curses onto people? Again, Ma'am Menchi Tolentino Amparan, hindi ko po masasagot kung ang inyong question for the PRC. So balikan niyo po sa kanilang Facebook page, sa guidelines po, or mag-send po kayo ng email or tawagan po sila. Okay, number 5. Okay, number 5, there's a lot of letter A's. Okay, and letter A here is the correct choice. She could predict when an eclipse would occur. Okay, so let's take a look at your next slide. So this is Agloniki, and she was one of the earliest women philosophers. Okay, so she was one of the earliest women philosophers. She, like many women philosophers, was considered a sorceress or enchantress because she was able to predict when the moon would disappear. Okay, and this is what we call an eclipse. Okay, so dati may discrimination, no? So ayaw nila yung mga babae ay nakikipilosopo din, nakikibahagi din ng kanilang kaalaman, no? So just like Agloniki, many women philosophers were considered sorceress or enchantress. Okay, so the reason for her case is that she was able to predict eclipses. Okay, so letter A po yung ating choice for that question. Number 6. Who was the first person to win two Nobel Prizes in two different categories? Is it letter A, Sir Isaac Newton, letter B, Marie Curie, letter C, Albert Einstein, or letter D, Antoine Lavoisier? Ayun, babaylan, sabi ni Sir Aladdin Calot. Okay, so yung tingin sa kanila ay mangkukulam, no, babaylan. Ma'am Clarimar Baltazar, kailan po ba yung pre-board? I-check po natin yung ating schedule. Pero of course, we are going to have your pre-board. Ayusin ko pa po yung schedule, no? So, ipopost din po natin yan sa inyong groups, sa inyong team. So, balik-balikan nyo po yung teams ninyo. Okay, letter B. Karamihang choice nyo ay letter B. And letter B here is the correct choice. Okay, so that's Marie Curie. Sir Isaac Newton, we know him to be the one who gave us the 3 laws of motion. Ano din siya din of course yung nagsabi ng ating yung ating tawag dito gravity, no? So Albert Einstein, of course, one of the geniuses. And of course, we know that he gave us a lot of theories, so including your theory of relativity, no? And he also said E equals mc squared. Antoine Lavoisier, isa din siya sa mga very famous chemists that we have. Okay, so here, letter B, Marie Curie is the correct choice. So this right here is a picture of Miss Marie Curie. Okay, together with her husband, she was awarded half of the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903 for their study into the spontaneous radiation discovered by Becquerel, who was awarded the other half of the prize. Okay, so first she was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1903, and then in 1911 she received a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, in recognition of her work in radioactivity. Okay, so Marie Curie is our choice. We move on to number 7. Who was the first known Greek philosopher? Hippocrates. Letter B, Thales of Miletus. Letter C, Aristotle. Or letter D, Plato. Ano ito? Si Sir Tolit's off-topic question, ma'am. Okay na po ba ma-download yung discussion 9, discussion... Okay, this is for the math major. Hindi nyo pa po ba na-download yung mga yun, sir? Okay, B. I see a lot of letter B's. Okay, letter B. Letter B po ang karamihang choice, and letter B is the correct choice here. Okay, so Thales of Miletus is considered to be the first Greek philosopher, no? So the first known Greek philosopher is Thales of Miletus, not Hippocrates, not Aristotle, and not Plato. Let's take a look at their other contributions. So again, Thales of Miletus was the first known Greek philosopher. He was also the person who said that the earth is made up of water. Okay, so the earth is made up of water. That's Thales of Miletus. Now, this right here is Hippocrates. Of course, we know him to be the father of medicine. He gave us a Hippocratic oath, yung sinasabi, yung nire-recite ng pinaniniwalaan ng mga doktor na dapat doktor and other frontline workers natin, frontliners natin, nurses, na dapat they would be saving lives. So kahit nakaaway nila yung isang tao, dahil meron silang Hippocratic oath, they should be saving lives. Okay, so yan yung si Hippocrates. That's the father of medicine. Aristotle, of course, is considered the father of biology, even the father of zoology, kinoconsider din si Aristotle. And we know that Aristotle also believed that the earth is made up of the 4 different elements. Sa chemistry nyo, napag-aralan nyo to. Fire, earth, wind, and water. Yan yung sabi ni Aristotle. As opposed to Thales of Miletus' belief. No? Si Thales, sabi niya, the earth is made up of water lang. Now, Plato is considered the father of Western philosophy and also considered the father of idealism. Okay? Now, as you can remember, nagsimula sila kay Socrates. No? So, Socratic method nyo, the question and answer method, galing siya kay Socrates. Plato was a student of Socrates and Aristotle was a student of Plato. Okay? So, napaka-importante talaga ng role ng isang guro. Okay? So, malay nyo na isa sa inyo maging philosopher, maging tanyag balang araw, no? So, karangalan ko at ipagmamalaki ko, sabihin ako ay naging guro ninyo. Okay? So, magkakakonekta sila. Si Socrates, si Plato, at saka si Aristotle. Anong Encantadia, Sir Raven? All right, we move on. Number 8, ocean water is a good example of a mixture because letter A, you can distinguish between water and salt in ocean water. Letter B, the water and salt can both evaporate. Letter C, it is a compound of water and salt. Or letter D, the mixture of water and salt can be physically separated. Okay, which one do you think is the correct choice for number 8? Okay, letter C. Karamihang sagot. Ano yan, Facebook user, paki-share. Ano yung tsupaa? Is the mnemonic if we want to remember the order of the philosophers. Ayun, letter C. May B. Okay, so again, going back here, ocean water is a good example of a mixture because parang genocide ito, maraming naligwak. The correct choice is letter D. The mixture of water and salt can be physically separated. This is one very important characteristic of your mixture. Your mixtures are physically combined, no? Physically combined po sila. And so, they should be physically separated. So, letter D po ang ating choice dito. Ayan po yung ating sagot for number 8. Okay, ayun. Tsupaa, Thales, Socrates, Plato, Aris, Alex. Okay, so yun. Meron silang binigay na hint sa inyo dito. Ayan. Kung gusto nyo daw pong ma-remember, na ma-memorize yung names ng inyong philosophers, ayan po yung kanilang hint or yung kanilang mnemonic. Maraming salamat po. Alright, so again, when you think about your matter, we know that matter is anything that occupies space. Now, it has volume and it has mass. Okay, so matter is anything that occupies space. That means it has volume and it has mass. Now, generally, your matter is segregated, no? Naka-segregate ang matter mo into the different divisions of different types of matter. So, matter is anything that occupies space, has mass. Po pwedeng pure substance, po pwede din namang mixture. Now, for your pure substance, you'll have elements and compounds. For your mixture, meron ka ditong solution, merong colloids, no, etc. Now, these right here are your elements. This is a pure substance made up of only one type of atom. And of course, yung pinaka-hint mo dito, ito yung mga nakikita mo sa periodic table of elements. No? So, the different elements that you have. There's hydrogen, sodium, neon, and so on. Pure substance made up of only one type of atom, that's an element. Now, compounds are a pure substance that is made up of 2 or more different elements that are chemically combined. Okay, so say you have water. You have H2O, two atoms of hydrogen, an atom of oxygen. You have calcium carbonate, limestone. You have sodium chloride, no salt. You also have carbon dioxide. So these are compounds, combinations of elements. That's your compound. But still, it is a pure substance. And napaka-importante for you to note that this is chemically combined, no, as opposed to your mixture. Yung mixture mo ay physically combined, hindi fixed yung proportion. Your compound is chemically combined and yung proportion nila ay fixed. And so it is sometimes very difficult to separate your compounds. You need to do certain processes, no, laboratory processes for you to separate your compounds as opposed to your mixture. Now, mixture mo naman, again, example is your sodium chloride and water in ocean water. The material is made up of two or more substances that are physically mixed but not chemically combined. And so they can be separated very easily by physical processes. Okay, so sa ating choice dito, ocean water is a good example of a mixture because the mixture can be physically separated. Okay, so letter D, ang ating tamang choice. Okay, so letter D po ang ating tamang choice. Alright? Ayun, may nagsasuggest, Ma'am Clarimel Baltazar, gawa daw kayo ng GC. Okay, gawa kayo later ng GC. Pwede naman dyan kayo mag-usap sa ating group. Alright, number 9. The ability of iron to react to oxygen is an example of letter A, physical property, letter B, chemical property, letter C, formation of rust, letter D, combination of iron and oxygen. Okay, what's your choice for number 9? Ano pong bawal? Sir Nap, bawal? Anong bawal? Bawal daw yung mnemonics nyo, sabi ni Sir Nap. Yung mnemonics kasi nila, chupa, TSOPAA. Okay, number 9, I see letter C's. Ligwakers na naman kayo dito. Okay lang, no? Okay lang maligwak dito. Di pa naman let. So mga first-timers natin, yung magti-take sa first batch, maghanda-handa na po. 21 days na lamang. Malapit na. Okay, do not waste your time na. Maganda nga ngayon naka-quarantine, no, pandemic, no. It's a blessing in disguise din. Mas marami kayong time pag may nagwo-work at virtual lamang yung work ninyo, ay spend nyo yun, the rest of your time, spend nyo for review. Ano, Ma'am Jenilyn? Anong alam mo, Ma'am? Ayun, tumawa Sir na. Okay, ano kaya yung tamang choice for number 9? The ability of iron to react to oxygen is an example of letter A, physical property. Example siya ng alin? Physical property, chemical property, formation of rust, or combination of iron and oxygen. Parehas naman itong C and D nyo, no? When rust is formed, it is because your iron and oxygen have combined. Okay, so combination of iron and oxygen mo, ang formation of rust. Ang tinatanong dito, ability, the ability to react to oxygen, the ability of a substance to react. Okay, being able to react is an example of letter B po ang ating hinahanap. Okay, letter B po ang ating hinahanap. It is a chemical property. Okay, so chemical property po ang ating tamang choice for number 9. Okay, so this right here is your physical property. Unahin natin yung physical property. It is a characteristic that can be observed or measured without changing the composition. So, hindi mo kailangang ipa-react yung isang substance para ma-measure mo yung kanyang physical properties. So, examples for this would be its length, its width, its mass, no? So these are just physical properties. Yung mass niya, yung weight niya, these are physical properties. You don't need to have the substance react with another substance so that you can measure it. So these are just physical properties. Chemical properties, on the other hand, it is a characteristic that can only be determined by changing the chemical identity of a substance. So kailangan mo munang ipa-react yung substance para ma-measure mo yung chemical property niya. And so, letter B po ang ating choice. The ability to form rust, no, or to react with oxygen is an example of a chemical property. Kinakabahan na ang mga first batch, sabi ni Sir Mark Hinko. Okay? So, again, letter B po ang ating choice for that item. Okay, we move on. Number 10, which of the following is a physical change? Physical change naman ito. Burning a piece of paper, melting ice, mixing vinegar and baking soda, or baking cookies. Ano kaya ang tamang choice for number 10? Wala yata si Kap. Tahimik si Kap. Si President, parang wala din. Okay, ayon, letter B. B. Okay, karamihang choice niyo dyan ay letter B. Good luck at God bless sa mga first batch. Fighting, sabi ni Ma'am Bebet Calbog. Kaya niyo po yan. Okay, letter B. Letter B, karamihang choice. We are looking for an example of a physical change, and letter B is the correct choice. So melting ice, that is just a physical change. Now, let's take a look at the difference between physical changes and chemical changes. When you say physical changes, it does not affect the composition of a substance, okay? It does not affect the composition of a substance. That means, yung substance mo ay ganun pa rin, no? Yung wala siyang chemical change, no? There's no chemical change. There is no new substance formed. And usually, if it is just a physical change, pwede mo pa siyang mabalik sa kanyang original form. Okay, so that's your physical change. Does not affect the composition of a substance. Say, you cut your paper, you crush your can, or you sharpen your pencil, no? So physical change lamang siya kasi ito, ganun pa rin naman yung chemical composition niya, hindi siya nag-change. Ito, can pa rin siya. Kahit na NUP mo siya, can pa rin. So that's your physical change. Now remember, all changes in the phase of matter, from solid to liquid to gas, yung changes in the phase of matter, these are all just physical changes. So melting, evaporation, sublimation, deposition, condensation, lahat ng yan po, no, yung change in the state of matter is just a physical change. So physical change po lamang sila. Katulad ng choice B natin, no, melting is just a physical change. Your chemical change naman involves a transformation into a new substance. So there is a new substance formed, and usually you cannot revert it to its original form. So that's your chemical change. These are some examples of our chemical changes or chemical reactions. Rusting, okay, baking your cake. After you have baked, you cannot take out the egg, the flour, the sugar, hindi mo na mababalik, no? Digestion, decay, decomposition is also chemical reaction, chemical change. Tarnishing of iron, okay, is also chemical change. All right, we move on. Number 11, why did Democritus disagree with Aristotle? Letter A, Aristotle thought all matter was made of atoms, but Democritus thought that only solids are made of atoms. Letter B, Aristotle thought matter could be divided infinitely, but Democritus thought there were tiny indivisible particles. Letter C, Democritus thought matter could be divided infinitely, but Aristotle thought there were tiny indivisible particles. Letter D, Democritus thought all matter was made of atoms, but Aristotle thought that only solids were made of atoms. Okay, which one is the correct choice? What is the correct choice for number 11? 11, sabi ni Sir Aladdin ay letter B, may letter D, Hirap, sabi ni Facebook user. Okay, ayun, samot-sari, lahat na ng choices na lumabas. May A, B, C, D. Okay, going back to number 11. Bakit nag-disagree si Democritus kay Aristotle? Remember, Aristotle was a philosopher, no? Prior to being considered the father of biology, the father of zoology. He was a philosopher, and during that time, philosophers were very strong. They were believed widely, no? So sila yung um, bilib na bilib yung tao sa kanila. Ayun. Ang sabi ni Facebook user, may kaklase ako nag-work sa PRC Coronadal. They're preparing na since September 1. Okay, so tuloy na ang inyong test, no? 21 days to go. Now, the correct choice here, what we are looking for would be letter B. Aristotle thought matter could be divided infinitely. So sabi ni Aristotle, if you have matter, you can divide it infinitely, no? So, pwede mo siyang mag-divide forever. Sabi naman ni Democritus, no, merong part ng matter na tiny indivisible particles. You remember si Democritus yung nagbigay sa atin ng term na atom. Okay, so siya yung nagbigay ng term na atom from the term atomos, no? So atomos meaning indivisible. Yan yung binigay ni Democritus. So hindi tama si Aristotle, sabi ni Democritus, you cannot divide it infinitely na sige ng sige hanggang matapos yung panahon. For example, ay divide mo lang yung matter. Yan yung sabi kasi ni Aristotle. Sabi ni Democritus, no. Atoms exist and atoms are indivisible particles. Yan yung sabi ni Democritus. And so they had a disagreement. Okay, so letter B, ang ating choice for number 11. So again, that's the beliefs, no, of Democritus and Aristotle. Democritus was the one who gave us the term atom from the term atomos, which means indivisible particles. Aristotle naman, sabi niya, you can divide matter infinitely. Okay. Number 12, which scientist used the oil drop experiment to measure the charge of individual electrons? Is it letter A, Rutherford, letter B, Dalton, letter C, Democritus, or letter D, Millikan? Okay, ano ang inyong choice for number 12? Okay, number 12, D, karamihang choice. And letter D here is tama. Okay, so that's Millikan, the scientist who used oil drop experiment to measure the charge of individual electrons. Now, we already know who Democritus is, no? So Democritus yung nagsabi that atoms are made up of tiny, indivisible, or matter is made up of atoms, and atoms are indivisible. Si Rutherford at si Dalton, puntahan din natin. Okay, so this right here was the experiment of Robert Millikan, and he was the one who said that electrons are negatively charged. Okay, so that's Robert Millikan. Oil drop experiment yung ginawa niya, no? And so he was able to find out that electrons are negatively charged. Now, si John Dalton, he gave us these ideas. No? First, matter is made up of tiny particles called atoms that cannot be divided into smaller pieces and cannot be destroyed. So parang nag-agree lamang siya with Democritus. And secondly, he also said all atoms of the same element will be exactly the same and that atoms of different elements can combine to form compounds. Okay, so meron na siyang idea ng element and compound. That's John Dalton. Now, after Dalton, we also have J.J. Thomson. J.J. Thomson discovered the electron. Okay, so electron naman yung na-discover ni J.J. Thomson. And he used his cathode ray tube or electron gun in his experiment. And so he was able to come up with the plum pudding model of the atom. Okay, so sabi ni Thomson, your electrons are negatively charged and para maging neutral, sabi niya, there is an area which is positively charged. Okay, and so we call this the plum pudding model by Thomson, and he was the one who discovered the electrons. Now we also have Rutherford. Rutherford naman ang nakadiskubre ng nucleus. Okay? So, nucleus, sabi ni Rutherford. Ang ginawa ni Rutherford, nag-emit siya ng alpha particle dito. Alpha particle, of course, is positively charged. And he said, there are some parts kung saan tumagos yung alpha particles, no? At the center. It is at the center. And so, he said that there is a hollow center, no? Merong part ang inyong ang tawag dito, merong part ang iyong atom which is made up of space. So he said, your atom is made up primarily of space. Meron lamang center siya na positive. Sabi niya, positively charged din yung center. Bakit na nalaman na positively charged? Dahil merong alpha particles na bumalik. You remember in chemistry, no, your opposites would attract, while your particles with the same signs would deflect each other. Babalik siya, no? Babalik siya dahil magkaparehas sila ng charge, may mga bumalik. So sabi niya, sa middle ng atom, merong positive na charge, pero merong parts ng atom kung saan tumatagos itong kanyang alpha particle. And so he said, mostly, an atom is made up of space. The middle is positively charged. Okay, so that's the gold foil experiment by Rutherford. And so this was the proposal ni Rutherford, no? Mostly, the atom is made up of hollow space. The middle is positively charged. Okay, so that's the nucleus. That's what he called the nucleus. All right, number 13. What did Rutherford discover in his gold foil experiment? Kaka-discuss lamang natin. Letter A, the nucleus is positively charged, small, and dense. Letter B, neutrons are located in the nucleus. Letter C, atoms are small and dense. Or letter D, electrons are negative. Okay, which one do you think is the correct choice for number 13? Okay, so again, number 12, that was Millikan. Time check, 8 o'clock. Alas 8 na, nasa number 13 pa lang tayo. So, bilis-bilisan po natin. Number 13, okay, letter A is the correct choice. No? So, kaka-discuss natin, sabi ni Rutherford, the nucleus is positively charged. It is small and dense. And the rest of the atoms are empty space. Okay, so yun yung sabi ni Rutherford. So letter A, ang ating tamang choice for number 13. 14, an example of an exothermic reaction is letter A, evaporation of water. Letter B, breaking of bonds. Letter C, when two chemicals are added together. Or letter D, the lighting of a match. Okay, which one is the correct choice for number 14? Ano po ang inyong choice for number 14? Which is an example of an exothermic reaction? 14. Okay, A, D, C, iba't iba ang inyong choice for number 14. Again, for number 14, we are looking for exothermic. Okay, so exothermic. And the correct choice here is letter D, lighting of a match. Lighting of a match. Tingnan natin yung difference between endothermic and exothermic. Now, remember your law of conservation of energy. Sabi ng law of conservation of energy mo, in any process, it might be chemical or physical process, energy is neither created nor destroyed. Hindi po nade-destroy yung energy, hindi po siya nake-create, no? It is only converted from one form to another. That's the law of conservation of energy. Now, we have what we call exothermic reaction. The system loses heat as the surroundings heat up. Okay, so when you say exothermic reaction, exo means going out or towards the outside, and thermic, of course, from thermos, it means heat or energy. So when you say exothermic reaction, it is a reaction that gives off heat. And so yung ating choice kanina is lighting of a match. Okay, of course, pag nagsindi ka ng posporo, mainit. Okay, so it is an exothermic reaction. Kaya siya yung ating sagot. Endothermic reaction, on the other hand, is a system or is a type of reaction where the system gains heat as the surroundings cool down. So in evaporation mo, para mag-evaporate yung water, when you form or when you form your bonds, no, para mag-evaporate yung tubig mo, you need to add more heat. Okay? And so it's endothermic. Yung hinahanap natin is exothermic. So letter D po ang ating correct choice doon, no? Lighting of a match. Now we go to number 15. Which of the following is the poorest conductor of electricity? Letter A, fluorine. Letter B, silicon. Letter C, cobalt. Or letter D, sodium. Which one is your choice for number 15? Di pa tayo nakaka-halfway, no? Okay, 15. What's your choice? Okay, for number 15, you are asked to give the answer of the poorest conductor of electricity. Now, remember in your periodic table, makinig, no? Sa periodic table of elements mo, meron tayong 3 types of elements. May metals, non-metals, and metalloids. Itong nasa gitna mo, no? Yung pitong elements mo dito, boron, silicon, germanium, As, Sb, Te, and Po. Itong pitong ito, I consider your metalloids. Okay, so these 7 elements in the middle, these are considered your metalloids. Now, going to the right of your metalloids, those are non-metals. So, non-metals na ito, helium, neon, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, and so on. Even hydrogen is a non-metal. Okay, so non-metal yung hydrogen. Nilagay lang siya dyan because of its atomic number, which is 1. Okay, now the rest of the elements are metals. So metals na itong lahat, pati itong nasa ilalim yung lanthanides mo and actinides mo, these are also metals. Okay, so again, boron, B, Sige, As, Sb, Te, Po, these are metalloids. Okay, they have both characteristics of metals and non-metals. Going to the right of your metalloids, these are non-metals, and the rest of those are metals. Now remember, the good conductors of electricity, yung good conductors mo are metals. Okay, so because conductivity is one characteristic of your metals. And so, ang hinahanap natin dito would be a non-metal. Okay, so dapat yung choice nyo ay non-metal, okay, going towards the right side of your periodic table. And so the correct choice here is letter A, fluorine. Silicon is right here, no? So it is a metalloid. Meron pa rin siyang conductivity kahit papaano. Cobalt is an example of a metal. It's a transition metal. Nandito yung cobalt. And of course, sodium is a good conductor, no? So sodium mo, Na, it is a metal. And so, yung choice natin will be fluorine because fluorine is already a non-metal. So, hindi siya conductor of electricity. Your metals are conductors of electricity, while your fluorine, your non-metals are insulators na hindi sila easily nakakapag-conduct ng electricity. Non-metal siya. Okay, so letter A,